Hello folks, welcome to Gelvin Valley. Wonderful map made by Wild Wes in Farming Simulator 15. We are in the process of, fertilizing our fields. That cover most everything. Let me see if I can get it a different angle. Yeah, that'll get it. Gotta try to do something a little more efficient in here than just going around and around. I've been playing some other versions of Farming Sim in the days before we had such a thing as GPS. And let me tell you, it's so handy having a tool like this. You really miss it, you know, when you don't have mods like this available. We rented a fertilizer spreader last episode and are in the process of fertilizing all of the fields that we have planted. It took quite a while to get everything planted. I think we have the whole farm planted, and now we're gonna give it some nutrients and wait for the good Lord to bring up the crop, and we'll harvest it again. And of course, as is so typical, we are out of capital, but oh well, we've been there before, and we've actually increased the size of our farm, so I think we're doing all right. Looks like we took her down to about half. Maybe we'll give it a little fill up as we head down the hill here. Shoot, I don't even know if we can get out the gate. And of course that's going to take us further into the red. Yeah, we should be able to get out. It thinks we're backing up for some reason. Not sure why. You'll let me through here? Gotta be careful because I know it's gonna do damage if I'm not careful. I don't think we did it in here. Nope. So, let me see. Maybe I should. I don't know. I never know on these fields if I should do a trip around first or not, or just what to do. So, we'll just set up one of these and take our chances. No, that isn't going to quite capture all of this over here. Maybe the first round I have no choice but to freehand it. It is what it is. Well, in the last episode in here of my chewing the fat, as my friend Eustace Farmer would call it, I mentioned that our family had recently taken a trip to the state of Arizona for my brother-in-law's wedding. So that was a special part of the trip, and really the reason for which, you know, we headed down there. But I said I had something else too that I wanted to share from this trip that in many respects was even more meaningful to me personally. You know, it's special, don't get me wrong, you know, to be with family when they have special events like weddings and whatever, graduations. But it's their special day. It isn't mine. I've had my wedding. I'm with my bride. So it isn't quite as special to me as I know it is to my brother-in-law in this case. What was really meaningful to me was taking a trip while we were in Arizona to visit Mrs. Atomic 67. And, you know, I've mentioned Eustace Farmer. I think we all know, or most of us here, that we're friends with him. He, at some point, changed his name from Eustace Farmer to Atomic 67. And I think the reason for it was he felt a little pigeonholed in farming sim type content, although I think that's kind of that was his gateway to doing YouTube, if you will, was the farming sim content. But he wanted to branch out and do other forms of gaming on YouTube, and not only gaming, I think he had plans for a number of other things. You know, if he would have had, if he would have been able to stay with us for a while, who knows what that man would have gotten to with his creative mind. There was a lot of things I think he wanted to try on this platform. But part of it, starting that off, if you will, was simply changing the name of his channel from Eustace Farmer to Atomic 67. So his wife, you know, eventually became part of it too, and I know some of us have heard her in, you know, if you want to get acquainted with her, if you will, woo, careful with the fence. You can hear her in some of his episodes on, I think it was called The Lake. He got another game and he started doing it in here. It's called The Lake. And he actually bought me a copy of it, which was really nice. And I think I ended up going through it all. I had some time to kill when we were on a family vacation a couple of years ago in the fall. So I went ahead and I did all the levels. It's kind of a chill game. But anyway, it was something. Now, what is that doing in the field out here? Maybe one of our phantom cows kicked the barrel out here. You know, I'm pretty sure I've seen a barrel out here before, and I haven't the foggiest idea how they get out here. Anyway, carrying on. So she was with him during that game. It's basically where you drive a postal carrier van, if you will, and deliver mail and packages all over town, and you kind of, oh, I wouldn't say you solve a mystery. You just live life, and it's just a very simple game, if you will, and yeah, just a simple, fairly wholesome game. And so it was just fun listening to the two of them do it. You know, there's any number of phrases out there. You know, the family that prays together stays together, and maybe for them it was the family that games together stays together. It was just a neat picture of their relationship, you know, that was kind of put out there on YouTube that the rest of us could enjoy. And I don't remember when he did this. This maybe was sometime before last fall. It had to have been. When I say last fall, you know, as I record this, we're in November of 2023, and so I'm saying before November of 2022. And why do I say that? Well, in November of 2022, about a year before we went down this most recent time, you know, for my brother-in-law's wedding, it was close to the Thanksgiving holiday here in the States, and we were going to go be with my daughter, who lives in Kansas. And so and at the same time, I wanted to take a trip with my family to take them to Hoover Dam and the Grand Canyon and some other special places, you know, in the U.S., kind of on the way. And in order to do that, we had to slip down south into Arizona. And while we were there, I happened to know that that's where Eustace Farmer, or Atomic 67, lives. They had just moved there from Las Vegas, and I know you can see kind of the chronicles of his moving from, you know, the eastern seaboard even to Vegas, and maybe he had something in there on moving to Arizona too. I don't remember. But anyway, that's where he was, and so I figured that while we were in Arizona, that it would be a small thing, you know, doing so much traveling anyways, that we would just come south and go see them where they lived. So we did that, and I gotta say, I am so thankful now that we did that as a family. You know, it's one of those things Um, yeah, and even he said this. He says, "Are you sure you want to travel, down to the Phoenix, the greater Phoenix area? Are you sure you want to travel 4 hours out of your way, just to come down here and see us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I really want to do that." Because we're on the road anyways, and what's 4 hours in the grand scheme of things? We had just been to the Grand Canyon for the day, and so we came down, we had supper as a family, and then we went to see Atomic 67 and Mrs. Atomic. And, we went to their home. He met us at the hotel so he could kind of lead us to where their home was. And we just had an awesome evening. And I'm pretty sure, maybe I've shared a little bit about this before, and maybe in one of my Hobo's Hollow episodes. What you hear when you listen to his videos is exactly who he is in person. It was just an awesome evening. He told so many stories. It was so funny and just engaging. He's just a wonderful person to spend time with. And like I say, I just treasure the memory of being able to do that, because, little did I realize at the time that this would be the only time in my life where I would get to meet someone who I consider one of my closest friends, one of the closest friends that I've ever had in my life. And it's kind of funny in many ways. You look at the internet and people wonder, well, can you build a relationship or friendship, if you will, over a digital medium? And and most of us, even that we're friends with him, through the Discord app that we use, or for a while he had a forum that he operated with some others. I know there's some things he was trying with some other YouTubers to kind of collaborate, and so I know he's been out there. There's been many of us who have interacted with him over the years and would consider him a friend, but very few of us have had the pleasure of actually seeing him in person and shaking his hand and getting to spend a little time with him. And I know he has a couple videos that he has shared on his channel of other meetups, that he's had with fellow YouTubers or other friends of his that knew him. So you can look those up kind of on his channel, but there wasn't that many, and for whatever reason, this time he opted not to record anything, when our family was there. It just never came up, so we just didn't think to do it. I don't even think we had a camera or anything on us at the time to even record anything that we did, or even take so much as a picture. Even a picture. I wish I had thought of it, but we didn't. All we did was go there and just enjoy one another's company. And I guess for me, we had exchanged, I don't know how many texts, through the Discord app. There was a few times we had talked on the phone, but most of it was through text. Oh, look at that. We're almost out of material. So for me, it was a continuation of a relationship we already had started. And for my family, it was opportunity to get, for them to meet someone that I considered a friend, but that they really didn't know. And I gotta say, after that, we left there, and when I asked my boys later what the highlight of the trip was, they didn't even say that it was going to see their sister in Kansas. They remembered Atomic 67 and getting to meet him. They just held him in high regard and thought he was a hoot and a lot of fun, which of course he is and was. So I say all that to say that's kind of when, I corresponded a ton, with Atomic 67, so he and I knew each other, but this was the first time that I had also met Mrs. Atomic, his better half. And of course, behind every good man is usually a very good woman, and she is one of those. And So that was an added bonus, I would say. Last year in 2022, when we went down there, was getting to meet her. And frankly, there was we spent as much time with her as we did with him as part of that trip. So it was wonderful getting acquainted, and that was one of the fastest I don't remember, 4 hours maybe, how long we were there. Just the time flew, and then it seemed like it was time to leave, and we had to continue on our way to Kansas, continue traveling and all that. But I'm so glad we were able to work that in as part of our trip, because it's the only time I was able to see him when he was alive, and it afforded opportunity to get to know his wife, Mrs. Atomic. Because, we continued on our way, Atomic 67 and I, we continued corresponding through that and beyond, and the year turned to 2023, and here's the thing, a person can really be lulled to sleep in life many times, and you take for granted things that you have, and you can assume that they're always going to be there. And I think we all know intuitively that life doesn't work that way. But it's hard to think otherwise, just in the day-to-day grind, if you will. Well, somewhere in there, I have his cell number. I must have had his cell number. He shared that with me long before we went down there, but he wanted to know how our trip was coming and how far away we were from his home for traveling, so they could plan on their end. So I had contact with him, and I don't remember exactly how I got Mrs. Atomic's contact information. I think I did it a little stealthily, and I really only had one purpose for it, and it was so I could periodically get a gift for my friend. One of the first things I remember doing that was just fun, he mentioned in an episode of his that he enjoyed a chocolate cake, I think. And so, kind of just on a whim, that's when he was in Vegas at the time, I found a bake shop, one of those high-end bake shops that was actually close to his home, and I got him a cake and had it delivered, and he apparently even took footage of it. I think he told me later the people in the bakery shop didn't really appreciate it, him coming in with a camera. But hey, welcome to modern times and YouTube. So he even took YouTube footage of it, and then he got me this that little cow timer thing that I use on all my videos now, so I know when 30 minutes is up. And he's just been so generous. He got us a steering wheel he gave us his old steering wheel so we could use it in game here. Although I still tend to just revert to, oops, sorry dude, I just ran you over. I still tend to revert to just using the keyboard, as it's a little bit easier for my style of play. But he's just, the nature of the person that he was, and those that remember him and that got close to him, he just gave, and it was in the form of time, counsel, advice. He helped me so much on my YouTube channel in terms of advice, and like I've always equipped and even told him at the time, you can't turn a sow's ear into a silk purse. So my videos are nowhere near as good a quality as what his were, but he was working with me and encouraging me, and folks, that is just invaluable to have someone who, in spite of your flaws, helps cheer you on in life. I don't know how any of us can navigate life without having that kind of an influence, in our life by someone. And for me, and I know for many others, that's just the kind of person that he was. But he just gave. And so I guess I mentioned all that to say, I wanted an opportunity to give back. Most of it just silly little stuff. We're not talking major things here, but so somehow I got contact with Mrs. Atomic for really that only one reason, and it was to periodically ask her if Mr. Atomic needed anything in particular, or what his other interests, hobbies maybe were, that I could, you know, periodically get a gift and kind of feed into that, if you will. Well, I didn't know at the time, you know, as I was setting that up, stealthily. I mean, I never told, that's kind of a ticklish thing, you know, to ask some other guy, hey, what's your wife's phone number? We just don't do that as a general rule. But anyway, I got that set up, and I'm so glad that I did, because, you know, then when he passed, you know, we had just been down there and had just met his wife, and I'll never forget, I mean, I think this was February 1st of this year, getting a text from her, and I'd already used her number, if you will, to solicit her opinion, and I'd gotten something kind of for Christmas for him. So that already was kind of neat that it'll work. But then I got a text from her out of the blue, February 1st in the morning, and she just said, "Can you please call me?" And at first my thought was, well, it doesn't even matter what my thought was. I was like, I wonder what's wrong. You know, well, I guess I'll just say it. I mean, at first I thought, well, maybe it was relationship-wise, and it's like, oh no, you know, hopefully something hasn't happened here. So, I mean, I just remembered texting back. I said, well, is everything okay? And she said no. And, I mean, I was at work at the time, but I called her immediately, and, you know, that's when I heard that he had passed. And I gotta say, I was devastated. And you know what? Well, how about that? Great demand, livestock for a pig. And truth be told, I still am. When you lose someone, you know, that you're used to talking to every day, conversing with, I don't care if it's in a digital medium or just what it is, it really hurts, you know, to lose that. And, you know, it's one thing even for me, I mean, it's a friend, but, you know, what about for her? I mean, this was, you know, her husband. And so, wow, I mean, that was a tough phone call, you know, just to get that news, tough for me to hear it, tough for her to have to share it, and, you know, with her finding him when he had basically passed, and having to deal with emergency services and all that in the home. I mean, just, it's one of those hard things that none of us ever want to have to go through, but most of us at some point probably will. I mean, let's look at the harsh reality here. If you are married, I'm killing a cookie in this field here. If you are married, well, odds are, unless you go down in a plane crash, one of you is going to pass before the other, husband or wife. So one of you is going to have to deal with that reality at some point. Like I say, most of us, we don't even think about it, or don't want to think about it. It's, maybe some would say it's morbid, but it's, oh, I'm going into the ditch. My glasses fall off of my table here. Let me pick those up. Alright, back to business. So, like I say, it was just a tough call. But I'm glad the connection had been made so that she could reach out and let us know. Otherwise, that would have been really awkward for a while, because I continued talking to Atomic 67 via text. I had sent him something the morning of February 1st. You know, if I go back there, it's like, hey, take a look at this and see what you think. It was something I shared in some magazine article I'd found that I figured he'd be interested in looking at along with me. But of course, he'd already passed, and he would never see it. So, you know, how would And there occasionally would be a day or two, you know, when we wouldn't talk. So, um, you know, so I might have continued talking to him. I just would have never known. And then all of a sudden, it would have been just kind of bizarre. It's like, well, how come he isn't talking to me anymore? And, you know, if I wouldn't have had contact information, you know, for Mrs. Atomic, it just, yeah. Eventually, I think we all would have heard, you know, somehow the message got out. And I think she did a lot of that for him. I mean, first, one of the hurdles she had was just figuring out a lot of his passwords and being able to take control of his YouTube channel and some of those kinds of things, or getting into his email, you know. And I guess it's a kind of a warning for all of us, if you will, to make sure, you know, we have all these things. I don't know how many passwords I know or how many accounts that I have, you know, to make sure my better half knows. So, you know, if I was to get run over by a bus tomorrow or something, that she'd have ability to get in here, and not that anybody would care, but let somebody know, or at least take it over or something, so she has access to it and can do anything she wanted with it. And I know for me, I store all my passwords somewhere on my system in a file. You know, there's probably better ways to do it, but yeah, just one of those things to deal with for all of us, kind of in the digital medium or whatever, that our parents or our forebears, you know, didn't have to deal with. Hey, come on, get up to the top of the hill. So since that time, Mrs. Atomic and I mean, we've stayed in contact. I wanted to try to give her as much support as I could, because I figured that that's what a friend should do, you know, when there's heavy stuff that happens. And we don't live in Arizona, so you know, we live probably 1,000 miles away, so it makes some of those interactions challenging. You know, here, you know, if something like that happened to me, I would have all sorts of family available to help out, you know, even in basic stuff. I don't, you know, we just wanted to try to stay there, stay in touch with her, to try to help her out as much as we could, emotionally, as much as anything. And I don't even know how much to say here about all that. I guess I just mentioned all this in advance, and I'm probably almost about out of time even in this episode to really get to the trip that we just had. You know, I go back to going down there for the purpose of my brother-in-law's wedding. Well, the more meaningful purpose really to me was, you know, getting to go visit with Mrs. Atomic. And it's just surreal. You know, the last time I just described, you know, the trip that we had down there a year ago, to come a year later and go to the same home, and he's not there. His, you know, it's, I don't know if you're kind of like me, it's almost like a type of disbelief, maybe, or this thought that, well, oh shoot, I left this on. It's this thought that maybe he's just in a back room, and he'll be out in a little bit, and we'll see him, right? Well, no, of course not. Of course he isn't going to just appear out of the back room, you know, when his remains are in an urn right in the front room. I mean, he's just not going to come in, but yet there's like this thing that just doesn't want to believe something has happened that has happened. Does that make any sense at all? I don't know if I'm the only one that way. It's kind of like in Discord, you know, I have literally hundreds of thousands of messages between he and I. And I've kept them all in Discord. And it's almost like in the back of my mind, I mean, I'm just being straight up. I can't possibly be the only one that has had to face this. But it's almost as if I expect that someday I'm going to get a message again from Atomic 67. You know, maybe he's vacationing, taking a cruise, you know, kind of like they shared at one point, you know, that they take some trips and would be out of pocket, gone. But of course, I mean, it's been month after month, and of course I haven't heard anything from him. Yeah, there goes the timer. That's my cow timer that he gave me. So it was just surreal, you know, when we were there the previous time, to have so much fun, laughter, loud talking, just a wonderful good time listening to him and talking together. And this time, same place, same house, same wife that he had, same, even same cat, you know, that they had in the house, but no Atomic 67. And like I say, I mean, I'm still grappling with it, and I know she is too. It's just hard, you know, when you lose a loved one, a friend, to try to come to terms with that they're simply gone. And I mean, some will say, well, yeah, it's just part of life. And you know, I could say that easily too, and I know I have. Death is a part of life, as dichotomous as that sounds. But when it affects you, all of a sudden it feels a little bit different for some reason. So anyway, maybe I need to have another episode right after this one to talk more about it. I don't know. I've just been missing him for half a year. That's all. So maybe I'll come up here. I'll get him filled up with more and continue on in another episode. Thank you so much for coming along and listening to me share my heart really on a friend and some of those things. Y'all have a wonderful day, and thank you for spending some time with me. Bye for now.